Hello, YouTube. This is for YouTube in particular and platform-wise. Uh, you see this? I'm recording on my new Samsung S26 about this, and so given the male skew of the platform, and of my own demographics, I could talk to you about politics, but I'm a left winger, so there's going to be massive disagreement there and everything. And so, let's just talk tech, today and everything. I'm recording this on a Samsung S26 at this point. This may alter my upload process when I want to show my face here on YouTube. I don't usually do that because then all the commentary becomes about how I look, and fuck that. I don't want to have a conversation about my face, it's not interesting to me. you know, you know. And anyways, but that's just the reality of why I do things that way most of the time. But I got an S26 the other day, and with it, they were offering a $300 off this little thing, and everything. And ever since I got it, I've been going for runs and everything around the block and everything, and just running for most of it because I need cardio, not just calorie burning episodes, because that will actually start causing my weight to go down and trying to get back in shape. Basically, ever since I got it, it's been a week now of going outside and going for runs, and I've already lost like 2.5 pounds, which is great. It's very encouraging and everything. But I got it, and I wanted to report ultimately that I saw some studies that showed that the S26 was striking within 1% of Apple's, their Pro Max 17s, their latest stuff, their absolute latest, and greatest phone and everything. Those chips that are in them and everything, it's striking within 1% on single core performance. So, we're really close to beating them on just a core for core basis. But, there are more total cores inside the Snapdragon 5 Elite chips than the Apple chip, and so it's obliterating them by 17% in multi-core performance. And so any piece of software that's been optimized on the Android side of the equation to take advantage of multiple cores is going to run much faster than it would run on Apple now, because there's just more power to draw from total. And so it came, beat them by 17%. So we're beating them on multi-core and coming within 1% of beating them on, single core on the Snapdragon side of things. And this is all largely owing to Qualcomm's acquiring Nuvia. And Nuvia was a product that, a project of former Apple employees that broke off from the company to go independent and everything. And so these are some of their legendary engineers, basically, went over to Qualcomm's camp, and ever since we've had these new Snapdragon chips and everything, and this is the 5th generation that's in this damn thing. And I went with the base model this time, because it was just like, well, the economics of it worked in my favor a lot better and everything. The bigger ones didn't really have a whole lot that I cared about, like a better camera, slightly better, and the screen was a tiny bit bigger, on the Pro models, and so it was just kind of like, just go with the base, Didn't really care about that stuff that much, or that dramatically. Anyways, so that's that's the new upgrade that I got for myself, and I've got the Samsung Watch and everything, and now I've got the earbuds too, which I didn't want to do, but I wanted to be able to listen to audiobooks on the go when I was walking around at the grocery store and doing errands and that sort of thing, and doing the laundry and whatever else needs to be done, and so now I can listen to audiobooks while I'm walking around and everything, which is great, because last year I actually beat the average of everybody's total reading last year I read about 18 books last year, as a result of the Goodreads challenge and everything. And I'm on track to read another 15 at least this year, and I'm actually one book ahead of schedule and 70% through another one already. So I'm getting pretty close to, being 2 books ahead of schedule at this point, on everything. And, I'm very close. And, this means I'm reading more books total than the average woman even at this point, because they read maybe like 10 a year and everything. And so turned into a pretty prolific reader and everything. I've been making my way through Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar novels, and I'm done. I go finish Soto's 86 light novels and everything, and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want my take after the result of this switch, looking at those Geekbench scores and everything, I mean, the price differential on the two, this one was maybe about $800, compared to Apple's price point. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's high. It's 4 digits at least, with them and everything. This is the much bigger bang for your buck. You're going to get a lot more price to performance on the Samsung side of the equation, and I guess you could say that when it comes to tech, I am a very, how should I put it, like budget conscious person, and I have a tendency to share tips about how to get, your technology cheaper and everything that you use and other things. Like my ISP sold me this phone. They paid for most of it, although I do have to pay like $8 a month for it, until it's paid off, I guess. They're staggering the payments out for a long time and everything. And, I went and got an early upgrade, especially because I've been with Xfinity for a very long time. And so they want to do whatever they can to make us, happy and keep us happy with Xfinity, because we've been there with them for, over 10 years of service with them. We're one of their most loyal customers, and they know it. So when we come in, when they look at our accounts, they're like, oh shit, and they'll do whatever they can to make us happy and everything. And I dropped my phone the other day because I had a bunch of running around to do, and in the shuffle I ended up dropping my phone on the cement and the screen cracked, so I had to go for the early upgrade and everything. But it's been great, looking at the Geekbench scores and everything, and realizing that I just this is the smarter purchase. Like I can't believe Apple still has like this fanaticism that they have for them, and even here on this particular platform, like what the hell, and the frustration continues, and everything. I run a Blue Bubble server, at this point, because it means I get to not be shut out of the having blue bubbles side of the equation, so no one knows that I'm running a Samsung device at everything. And there's flying insects buzzing around, so I don't really like that. So anyways, yeah, that's it was the smart man's purchase, not just the poor man's. Much bigger bang for the buck, as far as all that stuff was concerned, and performs, ostensibly, depending on how the software was written. If it's written to take advantage of multiple cores, then it's going to run better on this particular platform than on Apple's literal top of the line. Because like I said, it came within 1% on single core, and then absolutely demolished them on multi-core by 17%. So that's impressive for, a Qualcomm chip and everything. We're beginning to really give Apple a show for its money. Asus has a new Snapdragon laptop out, and I'm hearing that the threat to the MacBook is absolutely real and everything, and just excited. Revenge of the old tech empire, finally.